I'm kicking off the MSP Blueprint Rebellion, where off-roading and breaking the mold are highly encouraged. My first, and might I say brave, guest is Mark Simpson from 23X, here to talk about all things AI with me. But before we do that, who the hell are you? What do you do? What is the 23X mission? Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, hi Ashley, thank you. I feel very brave right now, but glad to be part of this. Glad to be kicking this off with you. Yeah, my name's Mark Simpson. I have spent my career, well, the last 20 years of my career founding a few companies, and I've grown some companies to reasonable size. They've all been in software, B2B software, and they've all had a very sort of heavy element of machine learning and AI involved with them. So I started out in 2006 with a marketing software business, which grew over 9 years to about 50 million or so in revenue, and Oracle acquired us. I then worked at the Watson team at IBM, which is the AI team over there in their marketing, commerce, digital experience, and analytics software products, which I ended up carving out a piece of business from IBM and growing that to about 250, 300 million in revenue, and private equity acquired that. And my last business was in HR technology, where we grew an interview intelligence platform, and that got acquired by a PE-backed strategic company at the beginning of this year. But each of the areas in which each of these businesses has had a heavy amount of machine learning and automation in the early ones, and in the later ones have been really fundamentally built their products around AI, and the processes within the companies around AI as well. So I'm glad to be joining you on this journey. I'm now doing 23X. We are actually looking to acquire our first MSP. Hopefully in the next few months. We've got a few companies that we're very interested in at the moment, and we're excited to get into the MSP space. We see a lot of change coming over the next few years because of AI in this space, and I'm very excited to be diving in and actually getting in properly.
Who is we?
Myself, and I have a business partner who helps me with the business. He actually runs a business which is adjacent to an MSP in self-serve automation, which think kiosks. Think go into an AT&T store and you'll see the kiosk that his company has manufactured, but it's now supporting on a month-to-month basis to make sure they operate as well. So all the IoT elements in there, and the screens and the printers and all those sorts of things need kind of to make sure they're online and being maintained, and the printers have paper and they're not jammed, all these sorts of things. So it's a fairly sort of similar model actually to an MSP in that there's ongoing maintenance as well as some implementation potentially to begin with on the manufacturing side. So very lucky to have him as a partner. We've known each other for a decade. We're very good friends, and yeah, we're on this fun ride together.
And ready to step into the MSP space specifically and throw the industry on its ass by implementing all sorts of AI in the right ways. Yeah?
Potentially, we'll see. I think the industry is going to go through a lot of change actually, and I think it's our key is to find the right company to begin with, and then help that company and the people who work there and their clients through the change that is inevitably going to happen. And there are some fairly sort of extreme ideas as to what that change might look like, and there's some fairly conservative ideas what it might look like. But either way, I think our role is to make sure that we come out of the other side of the next few years in a better place than we are now. And I think there's a lot of opportunity to do that. I do think the MSP space generally, from what we've seen, and we've been in it for a while now, is a little behind on AI. Even the larger vendors, I think, are very behind compared to some of the other industries that we've been in the past. But the good thing is that people will catch up very, very quickly. So looking forward to being part of that and helping the whole industry.
Excellent. So before we really get into the state of AI and where it's at right now and what you've been seeing, I have to bring up this this topic in that I've had multiple conversations over the last few weeks where folks are using automation and AI in conversation interchangeably, and it's giving me a lot of heartburn. So, can you please define the difference between automation and AI?
Yeah, you and me both, and I get a bit of heartburn hearing that from you as well, actually. So, okay, let me think. The simplest way to define it. Automation does what you tell it to do, and it does it in the same way every time. Whereas AI can look at different information, it can make sense of it, and it can get better and learn over time. And it can change how it works based on what it learns. Let me try and think of an analogy, try and bring it to life. Okay, um, so think of automation as a vending machine. So you define what goes in each slot and you set the prices. And then when someone presses the right buttons, the machine dispenses exactly what you've programmed it to do. And it does the same thing every time. It follows the instructions. If you think of automation like that, then AI is more like a personal chef, where you can give it ingredients and tell them what you like, and they'll make something and they'll taste it and they'll adjust it based on your feedback, and you'll get variations of it. And the chef will learn from experience and adapt to your different tastes, or can handle different requests. So AI systems kind of use data to recognize patterns and make decisions and improve over time, rather than just repeating the same sequence.
I was not mentally prepared for that comparison, but but it was very appropriate, just not the direction I
There
thought
we
you
go.
would go.
Now,
That's
now no
great.
one will ask. Now, no one will use that interchangeably again, I hope.
No, absolutely not. Okay, so let's get into the real hot topic around AI. I want to talk about the state that of AI where we're at right now. Maybe where AI itself is, what its capabilities are, but then where we are as adopters.
Okay. Yeah, sure. So where do we start? I mean, I think it's worth realizing that, actually I looked this up the other day. ChatGPT only launched on the 30th of November in 2022. That's 3 years ago, almost exactly, almost to the day, right?
Mhm.
And in the first 5 days, it amassed 1 million users. Like one of the fastest adopted technologies ever. Agentic AI launched in late 2024, so we're kind of a year into that. And what I say about the maturity of it, look, we're still in the early days of a long journey. But I will say that it's a journey that's had such significant widespread use that it's now commanding every headline and every business you know journal that you would care to read. If you look at the research, 90% of organizations report that they're using AI. I would just layer onto that, the usage of AI and people using it is very different to maturely adopting AI to actually do things of significant value. There's a big difference, let's say, between like using ChatGPT to answer questions and produce content for you versus using AI in fully autonomous workflows to actually achieve different things. So I think that when you look at it, I would still say the majority of deployments of AI are still kind of pilots rather than core scaled solutions. But we
Mhm.
have got to the point where larger companies are using AI in a core and scaled way to provide solutions. So there are varying maturities of businesses. I would also say, the other thing that I see about kind of the maturity of the market, small businesses are generally sort of lagging in adoption of AI. They tend to be a little bit more of the laggards rather than kind of that mid-market and enterprise side of things. So
Why
you
do
probably
you
see
think
more
that
happen there.
is?
I think it's a resource thing, predominantly. I think there are more resources in larger companies and more mandates to look at how we make those resources more efficient, how we make people be more efficient as well. So they've really sort of jumped on the bandwagon a little bit quicker and jumped on some of those headlines to see if they can make them reality a little bit quicker. Whereas smaller businesses, sometimes a little bit more. I think it's just a trend. They're a little bit more adverse to change sometimes. So,
Mhm.
the way you did it yesterday is the same way you do it today, and it's the same way you do it tomorrow in some businesses. And if it's not broken, then why are you fixing it? I will say though, there's big opportunities there with AI, and I think the world's going to change quite dramatically. So, ignoring it is a little bit at your peril.
Yeah, I wondered about that in just seeing if or us kind of witnessing businesses be left behind and almost losing their clientele and their outreach because of the lack of adoption around it or the lack of usage. So for how long can it really be an excuse of resources before it just becomes a refusal to do it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And look, I think that people are applying AI now, right here, right now, to make their companies more efficient for a
Hmm.
start, which can, if you think of the knock-on effect of that, you can start changing pricing policies, and then you can start outbidding your competition. And even some of the simplest things that maybe AI is good at right now, and you're seeing a lot of adoption in right now, can have big knock-on effects to how well businesses scale and win business over their competitors, and those sorts of things. So, you know, playing with it, experimenting it, seeing what it can do for you, I think is a very good thing.
Yeah, agreed. Let's talk about AI in operations, and where you think out of the gate. I'm speaking generally. This doesn't have to be necessarily MSP focused, but just in general, where do you think the best first place is to start when implementing AI into your operations?
Um, yeah, the best first place is interesting because it's a little bit business dependent. But for if I was, looking at MSPs, if we do want to target it, I think
Okay.
there's probably some high impact areas that you could implement AI in the next month, 2 months, 3 months, and have a really big impact. So I would say, some big ones are things like, I've seen a lot actually of activity in the space around AI help desk and triage, and deploying an assistant or an agent to handle common support tickets and route complex issues, and really make that that speed of response to your client a lot quicker, so much better SLAs, but
Hmm.
also the resolution of those problems potentially a lot quicker as well, and just do it more efficiently. Being able to make sure that, instead of doing some of the manual work there, the people that are handling the triage and the direction of those tickets, can actually be put on higher value tasks. So
Yeah.
there are a bunch of startups in this area, which I'm a little surprised about, but they're there because it's not a hard thing to do, but they're there because some of the big platforms don't do this, which I'm more surprised about. This really should have been sort of rolled out already after a good few years of AI being in the market. But
Right.
that's a really sort of simple place to start. I don't think
Can
there
I
are.
can I
Go on.
pose I want to
Yeah,
pose a challenge question.
yeah.
I'm going to go off-roading now. Um, so MSPs, their legacy fame is their intimacy with their clients, the client environment, the relationships that they build. So throw in AI into that first call or that first outreach from a client. Do you feel like that's going to impact the relationship build cycle for an MSP because now they're taking the human out?
Yeah, look, I think it's absolutely a fair point. I think that there is a balance between, um, making things fast and easy, versus over automating customer interactions. And we do see this. You see kind of companies going too far, in certain areas. But I think that if somebody is able to get resolution to the issue that they have within seconds or minutes rather than wait for someone to pick up the phone and speak to a human, I actually think that more and more people are willing to do that, or want to do that. I also think there is a difference in types of clients that you have. Some clients will want to have the phone picked up because they're maybe a little more old school in inverted commas, and maybe some of the sort of newer clients out there just want to have some things fixed and speak to AI. I have daughters. And if I look at the way in which they communicate versus the way I communicate, it's very, very different. They get on Snapchat and they will have asynchronous conversations with their friends, like recording themselves, and then they go away and they pick up the phone and they've recorded conversations. But I'm like, it blows my mind how they have these conversations. But they're very used to operating in this way. And as you know, as some of the younger generations start coming through and building businesses, you can just see that they're just more AI native, and more willing to have a conversation with AI or a text chat with AI or email or whatever it might be, to get quicker resolution to problems than having to pick up the phone. Now, there is a part of the market, as I say, that will always want to pick up the phone, and you're going to have to move and shift with what your client's preferences are.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know that you necessarily won the argument of that question, but
I
I can
feel I
see
won. I feel I won that
I
argument.
I can see both sides.
Yeah,
So that's me maturing like AI right now.
there we go. There we go. You and I are just too old, Ashley. That's what it is.
That's what it is. Wait a second. I don't want to be thrown into that bucket. You will be old by yourself.
Yeah. All right. I'm a little older.
Um, I feel like the next phase, especially when it comes to the risk liabilities we see in organizations across every industry, is to bring up cyber,
Yep.
cybersecurity, and understanding where AI has a play in that, and if it does, is it a risk to it? Is it helpful? What are you sensing?
Yeah, I mean, very much so. Look, I think help desk automation was the first thing I touched on. It's kind of one of maybe a number of different elements which AI can just be used today. I think that AI is already being used in cybersecurity. We see it. And we see it on both sides, right? So we see, bad actors using AI to, have simple things, have much better phishing campaigns because everything is personalized and emails look like they're from the sender, and all these different things. So actually, really more targeted and more sophisticated sort of threats. And AI on the other side is being used to look at behavior-based analytics and identify and block emerging threats, and looking at trying to lower risk of breaches and strengthening trust and all those elements. So I think if we look out a number of years, when AI and quantum computing get together, that's where things get really scary on both sides because things accelerate very, very quickly. So
Yeah.
Yes, I think it's maybe a bit of an obvious answer, but AI is a good thing in trying to detect and solve some of these threats, but a bad thing in that these threats are getting much more sophisticated now as well.
Interesting. That's what I like to call the double-edged sword, right?
Very much so. Very much so.
uh, I've always said from a system standpoint or a platform, and this is not something I made up, but it's just the truth around anything that we build is only as strong as the information we put in it. And I feel like AI is the same way. It's doing what we're defining it to do, and it's taking our feedback to evolve itself. But now we think about it, that's just personal use, right? That's when I talk about that, it's about personal use. When we look at it from an organizational standpoint, what is the data necessary for it to perform for a company versus a person?
Yeah.
Does
I
that
mean,
question make sense?
yeah, it does. It does. I think companies can think about it in similar ways, but they need to just layer on more guardrails than you would as an individual. So there are There's a couple of things with data. One is quality. Any kind of AI or AI process is only as good as the quality of data that's being fed into that process. I think you pretty much sort of outlined that. Um, and then the quality of maybe the augmentation of that data, if you're bringing other data to train models or whatever it might be. The second element, particularly within businesses, is what guardrails you put around the data, who should be able to see it, what it should be able to do, and all of those elements need much more thought around it than if you were just going off and using ChatGPT for personal reasons.
Mm,
Um, you know, Practical examples. If you use AI in HR systems or HR processes, and it's synced with a broader sort of ability of AI within a business or intranets or whatever it might be. You don't want your analyst being able to look at your CEO's compensation potentially,
right.
or or medical history, or those sorts of things. So just making sure that the AI surfaces the right thing to the right people, with those guardrails is very, very, very important.
Yeah, I would say that was why when I was serving as a chief people officer that I was very hesitant to utilize it. I actually said no to it being on my team's computers for quite some time because I just didn't get a strong enough definition around what information would be protected and what wouldn't. So
Yeah.
and now here we are, and I'm talking about AI and utilizing it all the time, personally and in business. And so it's interesting, even just the evolution from the fear to now.
Yeah,
Do
look,
you?
I just think that privacy and governance kind of a little bit more, I think people have always had caution about them, but it's a little bit easier to get your head around now. More and more people have been running sort of AI projects in the space.
Yeah, agreed. I do still feel like there is fear to it, though. There's there is fear of using it and what the output will be, and I think that's obviously with people who aren't growing up with it necessarily in the way that we have. But there's a lot of fear around AI taking jobs and hurting the economy because people will be out of work. What are your
That's
thoughts
true.
on that?
Um, Look, I think what every CEO says to their team is, don't worry, we need humans to run the AI, and we need all of you, and AI only works good with kind of human intervention. And to a certain extent, that is true. Um, but then you look
Liars.
at but then you look at companies doing mass layoffs in their engineering departments because AI can get you 80% of the way to building, something fairly simple, and the engineer can finish 20% off. So you need, 4 out of 5 of your engineers. Now that is an over extreme thing to say because yes, you need more than that,
Right,
but you do see companies sort of laying off in various different departments because AI is making the company need less humans. You see it in things like customer support, where that's the obvious case where more and more companies are using AI to provide kind of first line customer support. And I'm not talking kind of ticket resolution here, but call centers and what have you.
right.
Um, and actually, customers can get a better experience on some things with that. So I think there will be a rebalancing of skills in the workforce. I think there will still be jobs in the workforce. I don't subscribe to, we don't, there are no more jobs anymore because AI does everything. But I do think there's a rebalancing of skills that will happen. And I don't know whether there'll be more or less jobs. I just think it'll be different sets of skills that need jobs. I think some of the things I see that are a little heartbreaking are people, who had coming out of college with computer science degrees, where 3 years ago they were the highest paid graduates out there, and now they're struggling to find jobs.
Right.
That's how fast the market is moving, and I think people just need to be aware of how AI might affect their jobs, and make sure they're moving with the market.
That's exactly it's so funny. I was going to bring that point up because I'm thinking being as a parent, right? My child is about to graduate high school and go into college. that now needs to be a part of their plan and in the program that they pick and what they're going into because of how quickly it's evolving and moving forward. How is that going to impact what you choose to do in your career? And not to say, I mean, the career I started in and where I'm at today are two very opposite ends of the spectrum. So it's not to say that those changes can't happen. They happen for everyone, but you're going to pay for a 4-year degree or a master's degree. You want it to be in a program that you feel like you can stick it out for the long haul. And how does AI impact that, right? So it's a little intimidating, I think.
Yeah, it is. It is. Actually, my daughter's 16, so she's thinking about college now. I sat down with her the other day, and I told her more provocatively than like have a true belief in this, that I would pay her 3/4 of her college tuition to not go to college, to go and do something else, just to see what her reaction was. She didn't bite. She didn't bite. I was like, okay, well,
Wow.
you're paying for your own college. But I was quite serious. Like, do you really need college now in the format that college is in? Because colleges haven't adapted, to what's happening in the market yet either. But
Right.
it'll be an interesting time to see how it all plays out.
I have an entirely separate soapbox topic on just college and continued education. So we'll have to do a whole other episode of this to talk about that, which has
You,
no impact on MSPs whatsoever. Um,
you can tell
but
me how to raise my child offline. Actually, that's fine. We won't bore the
great,
audience with
you're welcome.
it.
I can serve in many areas in people's lives. You're welcome. So I would say, I guess my last piece is just what haven't we touched on that you think from an AI perspective is really important to put out there?
Um, what do I think? I think that there's a few things. I think the biggest thing is just not to get stuck in not knowing what to do, because I actively sort of see AI being deployed very successfully in all parts of business, from things like what we've spoken about, things like kind of help desk and triage and that sort of things, but right the way through to sales and marketing, where I see, AI doing a really sort of good job in, lead generation and, other, identifying quality leads and personalization of outreach and all these different things. And it really does go from kind of front to back in a business. I would just encourage people to start
Mm,
trying something. And I think the best sort of thing to touch on there, or the best advice I can give is start with something simple, start internally, apply, AI to some simple sort of processes where it adds value. Define the value that you want it to give, and make sure it adds value, and then start strengthening that from kind of pilots into something that actually is something that can be scaled and rolled out, and be open about it with your team, and be open about it with clients, and have that sort of experimental mindset as much as possible. I think you put a post out, I think, this week, didn't you? Just around kind of change and
yeah,
being open to change. I think that post is more relevant now than it's ever been before. Very, very timely, in that I think 2026 is going to be a massive year of change. I think AI is going to drive a lot of that, and I think
right.
not being open to it is gonna hold a lot of companies back, because as I say, we didn't even know about ChatGPT until 3 years ago, pretty much to the day. And look at what we're talking about. Look at what everyone's been talking about. It's just accelerating every single year. So just being a little bit, diving in and being on the forefront is a good idea.
Absolutely. It's an opportunity to either be the master of your own destiny or having it forced upon you and you being, even being left behind and losing the opportunity to continue your business. It then it can, comes down to somebody scooping it up because you let it go too far behind or fall too far behind. So,
Let's hope we don't do that.
yeah. Or in your case, maybe you want somebody to do that so you can come scoop them up.
I, I'm look, I'm a big fan of everyone can succeed in this. It's kind of
Yes.
why I do these things, and I think that if I can help an industry, raising tide raises all boats. So
Yep.
I think we could all, we can all learn from each other. And it's been a very fortunate sort of. I feel very lucky to be involved in the industry now because everyone has been so helpful to me. It's a great place to be, and yeah, I think we should just start experimenting and seeing how things go.
I love it. Thank you for having this conversation with me and helping me kick this off because I think it's really important that we're having more progressive conversations around our industry and the work that we're doing, but also the work and opportunities that we're leaving on the table. And to know me is to know that I will call out any gap, any problem, and any challenge because I love to face them. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me on for the first go. I hope everyone, hope everyone appreciated it, and I look forward to seeing what you do next. Actually, we'll have to do a re-go in 6 months to see whether anything that we said today was actually true.
Excellent. It's a deal.